So, let's talk about Commonplace books. This tool that many people tout as a notebook that saved them from doom scrolling or as their second brain. I have shown many of my notebooks in this channel, as that is mostly what I do here. I show my notebooks, I share how I use them. Can't say that they have saved me from doom scrolling, but I do find that notebooks as a whole work as a second brain. That is the function of anything we use to write down information. We are putting it on paper because we don't want to rely on our memory or because we want to use that mental energy for something else. A post-it could be a second brain, and your planner is a second brain. I will not be making any grandiose promises on how a notebook could fix life. Instead, I would like to take a step back and just talk about what is a Commonplace book, how they have been used in the past. I will talk a little bit about how I use my own notebooks as Commonplace books, and perhaps you will find some inspiration or some ideas that you could apply to your own note-taking system. So, what is a Commonplace book? It is a place, usually a physical notebook, where you compile knowledge in the form of quotes, ideas, observations, and information gleaned from, yes, reading, but also from conversations and from your daily life experiences. Your Commonplace book is basically a reflection of your interests at a particular moment in your life. And an article I saw in the Bullet Journal website, they also describe a Commonplace book as a thinker's journal, which I thought it was a very beautiful way to describe it. Once you know what is a Commonplace book, you realize that you have probably kept something similar at several points in your life. A notebook where you wrote down quotes and things that you found inspiring. And the thing is that Commonplace books are not new. They have been around for centuries. It is an ancient practice. If we look back at the history of notebooks, we can see a very basic principle that still applies today. If you found a piece of writing that you thought was interesting or inspiring or useful, you would write it down in your personal notebook. The thing that separates the Commonplace book from, say, a regular journal or a diary is that in a Commonplace book you arrange your contents by topic in common places. You do this through headwords or indexes to be able to reference raw material. In the words of Roland Allen, author of The Notebook, A History of Thinking on Paper, the systematic arrangement of information turned the notebook into information technology, a piece of hardware in which data could be stored, categorized, and retrieved as necessary. The thing is, this tool was never an end in itself. The goal of the Commonplace book was to help you remember information, gain insight, and to produce something by helping you making sense of the things you wrote down in your notebook. The most popular form of Commonplace books I have seen is the reading journal and the media journal. You know, people who devote one notebook to write down what they're reading, paragraphs, some quotes, and they have categories: fiction, non-fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, and you can arrange your reading journal however you want. There's also the media journal for series, TV shows, movies, maybe videos on YouTube, podcasts. And they also have categories that make sense to the person recording those quotes or the information that they find interesting. Some people argue that a Commonplace book should not include diary entries or your feelings. But then if we look at the history of notebooks, we see that they have been whatever the user needed them to be, you know? And if you write down a diary entry or a personal anecdote because you want to engage with those words, and in the process you gain insight that you could use in your work, why can't that be part of your Commonplace book? In here I collect things that sparked inspiration, that made me think, and that I may want to find later or be able to reference characters, dialogues, places. And that's why I try to be very consistent with keeping an index of my Commonplace books. I have, an index for all my contents, and I have shown my index in previous videos. I have a long index with all my contents because I like to see everything I wrote down. And then I have an index for characters that either I saw in real life or that I came up with. I have an index for places, for dialogues, for personal reflections. Your notebook is supposed to be whatever you need it to be. So don't try to adjust your system to someone else. I would strongly encourage you to find whatever system works best for you, however your mind works best. And I guess the first question I would encourage you to ask yourself is, what do you want to gain from your Commonplace book? How can I say this? I like to write short stories. So I collect descriptions of places, descriptions of people. I collect conversations I overhear. I collect words that I found interesting, either because I didn't know them before or because the way I heard or saw or read them, the way they were being used, was new to me. Those are the things I collect. I also collect color palettes because I like to draw, I like to paint. And I have an example here actually. For example, this was a pamphlet from a funeral home. But I love the colors. And this one, I got it at a board game store. And I also love the colors. And it served as inspiration for a drawing I did later for Day of the Dead. I wanted a color palette that included purple and orange. And I love this example. So I collect those kinds of things. I have several examples of color palettes that I like. And anything that could spark inspiration, either for painting, drawing, writing a short story, writing an essay. That's the kind of things I collect. Another example that comes to mind, a great example actually, is Ryan Holiday, author of The Daily Stoic. He uses, instead of notebooks, he uses index cards. And he collects quotes and paragraphs and information that he gleaned from reading and that he digests and helps him gain insight, and he later used for his own books. He talks about his process in a couple of videos. I will link them in the description below. Another great example that comes to mind is Ryder Carroll, the creator of the bullet journal method. He also has a video on, making notes of the things he reads or he hears or he learns with the goal of producing something afterwards. Some other examples you may want to check out is Park Notes and Jared Henderson. They're both philosophers and they also have videos, I will link them in the description below, on their Commonplace books and how they keep a Commonplace book and how they use them as philosophers. And a personal favorite is Journal de Sylvie. I will link her in the description below. Her Commonplace books are works of art. I mean, she approaches Commonplace books with a very historical perspective. Even like the aesthetic is very historical. The way she uses indexes is very interesting. The keywords, and her notebooks are just a delight to see. So that's another channel I strongly recommend. But if you have other recommendations, I would love to hear them. Please share them in the description below. I don't have any examples of people who do commonplacing on digital platforms. But if that's your thing, if working with a physical notebook is not what works for you, I'm sure there are many examples of people who work with Commonplace books using, I don't know, maybe Notion or Obsidian or some other kind of note-taking app. And if you have any recommendations, please do share them in the comment section below. And that's it. I hope you found some useful information. If you have any questions, ideas, comments, please share them below, and I will see you in the next one.